Right, we are waiting for our flight to Chicago. So, what are you looking forward to the most in Chicago?
Maybe the food.
The food. What kind of food?
Cinnamon rolls.
You can get that here, you know.
But they're gonna be better.
What about like the deep dish? The big pizza
Yeah.
pie. Alright, we'll leave it at that then. So that's Georgia. I don't know if you'll see her again in this vlog. And we're boarding soon, so see you guys on the other side. So we flew from Dublin to Chicago with Aer Lingus, which is an Irish airline. The flight was direct, so altogether it took around 7.5 hours. We booked our flights a few months in advance, so we managed to get a pretty good deal on the price. There are other airlines that fly direct to Chicago, but we're kind of familiar with Aer Lingus, so we kind of know what to expect. As with any other long-haul economy flight, it wasn't exactly comfortable the whole way through, and there were some times where I found it was tight for space, especially while eating. But overall, the experience was good. We managed to get some sleep, and watching all 4 hours of Oppenheimer definitely helps as well. I don't think I'll ever not be amazed at how big Lake Michigan is, and I wouldn't blame you if you still thought this was the Atlantic. Hello again. So we just landed at O'Hare after a 7.5 hour flight. Absolutely tired. Already Georgia's looking at Dunkin' Donuts, iced coffees and cake boxes. So we're off to a good start. Dunkin' Donuts guy? I'm not sure where he's from. Yeah. I think you can guess which country we're in with all the flags around here. So yeah, I guess we're in the States now. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna go collect our bags and get out of here. So after getting picked up by my uncle from the airport, we took in how different the housing styles are compared to Ireland. And one of my favourite parts of going abroad is seeing the different types of architecture there is all around the world. And we'll get into the architecture of downtown Chicago later on in this video, but for now, here's what a typical suburban area looks like in Chicago. So once we'd kind of finished scoping out the area, we then decided to view the skyline of Chicago at nighttime, and this is when the city starts to take a different identity altogether. I've always thought Chicago was just a cleaner version of New York, and I think that the skyline here is really similar to other big city skylines I've seen around the world. We then finish it off with a quick drive around the city. After sleeping through the good part of 10 hours, we got some much needed catch up on sleep. I think we had been awake for almost 24 hours at that stage, so it was nice to reset and just sleep. For breakfast, we wanted to try some local cuisine, so we went to Portillo's, which is a local Chicago chain, and tried the garden dogs there. This so happens to be my favourite chain in Chicago, and the food here is always tasty. We then went downtown to do some regular touristy stuff, as it was George's first time in Chicago. Here's the Bean. And remember when I said it was just a cleaner version of New York? Yeah, this is what I mean. And in terms of random hunks of metal, I think the Bean beats the Spire. For dinner, my uncle took us to this neat little restaurant just in the city called Oven Grinder, where they specialise in pizza pot pies. And if you like cheese, this is the place for you. There was so much cheese loaded onto this, but it was so tasty at the same time, and the tomato sauce, really good. Highly recommend this restaurant. We had to call it a night after that meal because we were so full, but at least we were carved up, ready to take on the next day. The next day, we decided to have a beach day. And whether you can call it a beach is still up for debate, but there was sand and a big body of water, so that's a debate for another day. There was also an amateur beach volleyball tournament happening the same day, and it was so cool seeing these games being played with a backdrop of the skylines behind them. It felt like I was in a fever dream, to be honest. And there was also free refreshments being given out on the same day, so we had a really good start to the day. Not to mention, it was peak summer, so it was super hot. We then made our way to Navy Pier, which is a place we really wanted to see ever since we started planning this trip. Now we wanted to see it during the day and at nighttime as well, so we'll be coming back here later on in this video to see the fireworks show and the drone show, so stay tuned for that. So when we finished walking around Navy Pier and a short little day trip, we then decided to do the Chicago Architecture Boat Tour. And I highly recommend this trip for anyone going. It really gives you a different perspective of the architecture of Chicago, and I didn't realize there was so much history behind these buildings. It also really helped me appreciate the amount of work and thought that goes into these buildings and how to design them. From buildings that mimic the ripples of the Chicago River to pure fashion statements, there is so much to unpack here. And did you know the Chicago River is naturally green and not just because of the dye they use for St. Patrick's Day? That was pretty cool. We then finished the day off with some noodles and tofu. On our last full day, we were starting to feel sad that our trip was coming to an end. But what better way to make yourself feel better than with some cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory? For mains, I had fish tacos, and I can't tell you how many fish tacos I've had throughout the whole trip. But here's the main event, the cheesecake. And my god, what a cheesecake. We'll leave it at that. Once we were all cheesecaked out, we then went to see a full 360 view of the whole city of Chicago from the top of Willis Tower at 360 Chicago. Because what big city trip doesn't end with a view of the whole city? And in terms of whether it's worth going all the way to the top to see the view, I'm gonna let these clips speak for themselves. Which then takes us back to Navy Pier for the fireworks and the drone show. It was also the last show of the year, so it felt like the perfect way to end this trip and experience it with my family. Before going back to the airport, we made one last stop to Target, because we're in America after all. And we actually realized, for all the hype we gave it at the start, we never actually tried a deep dish during our trip, so now is the perfect time to do it. And what better place for a deep dish than Giordano's? We managed to get the full family together, and I always get really emotional when I say goodbye to these guys because I don't really see them that often. And the actual deep dish? Totally worth the wait. So much cheese, and probably a lot of calories, but hey, we're on holidays after all. And this slice went down like a treat. So a few pictures of my new cousin and the rest of my cousins, and we finally ended our trip to Chicago. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.